there, and thanks for listening to the Adulting is Easy podcast, where we make adulting easier by making money easier. This is your host, Lauren. And I'm joined today by Andres Sanchez, who at 24 years old has already founded 4 companies, 2 of them, one of which was founded with his best friend and business partner. Each went on to do 6 figures in sales. Due to COVID, only one of those businesses still operates. So Andres's new venture is the podcast, the Virtual Ventures Podcast, where he interviews amazing entrepreneurs like me. His day job is software sales at a top 20 tech company. Thank you for joining me, Andres.
Thank you so much for having me, Lauren. It's a pleasure to see you on the other side of the camera.
I know. I'm excited for this. It's payback for when I was on your show. I'm just kidding. Today's podcast episode is brought to you by House Money Media, Tom Brickman, the Frugal Gay, Alan Corey, real estate maximalist, and me, Lauren Keene-Amman from Adulting is Easy, have joined forces to launch a new generation of real estate investors. Sign up for our real estate investing courses and membership. Space is limited. Visit housemoneymedia.com. Again, that's housemoneymedia.com. Real estate content with personality. So our goal for today is to make adulting easier for listeners by discussing a personal finance topic, since managing money is a huge part of adulting. So today, Andres, we're actually going to talk about sales. But first, I wanted to just give a little reaction to your bio there. And by 24, I had like a house, which I thought was like pretty good at the time. 4 companies, that's kind of insane to do by the time you're your age.
Yeah, no, thank you. And honestly, now looking back, if the roles were flipped, I wish I had a house at 24, but I live in Miami. And for anybody that knows, you have to work extremely hard to purchase anything in Miami at the moment. So that is something I'm dealing with right now. But yeah, 4 companies by 24. I played sports my whole life, always played baseball, decided in college to make a change. I was supposed to go to a Division II school and play, wanted to go the junior college route, thought I could go to a cooler school, I guess you could say. And it just wasn't a great decision. Wasn't very happy with the situation. So I just quit, thinking, you know what? I have been playing baseball, practicing 7 days a week for the last, 14 years of my life. I need a break. I need a little bit of a break. I'm going to chill out. And I think that break lasted a total of 10 days before I was like, all right, I'm bored out of my mind. I had 2 of my buddies who had gotten a job. Nike built a flagship store down here in Miami, and 2 of my buddies had one of my buddies had gotten a job, and the other buddy was like, hey, let's go try and get hired over there. It seems pretty cool. So, the buddy I'm speaking of is actually my cousin, and we had to sit shoulder to shoulder next to each other in a group interview and pretend we did not know each other. So that was hilarious. We both ended up getting the job. We were freaking out because we're like, now we're competing against each other. We're in the same interview. What are we going to do? We both ended up getting the job. It was great. But I think I lasted like 3 months. They weren't working with my school schedule. I was just getting a little tired of like the crazy hours that they had. But the one thing that I noticed was people are lining up at the door to buy these sneakers that they sell here. And some of them aren't even valuable sneakers. And there's just every day people lined up like, I need this Nike product. And I was like, I think I could make more money selling these products on my own. So I quit, decided, all right, I'm going to try and dabble in sneakers. Or originally it was all just, hey, sneakers are really expensive. I like them. How can I get them for free or at a retail price and not have to pay the big bucks? Let me figure that out. Did that, and that organically kind of just started to grow and grow. By the end of the first year, we were doing anywhere from 100 to 200 transactions a month of sneakers. So I had built up some bulk buying clients. I had my individual like higher ticket sales. And then I also started dabbling in like lower margin, higher volume shoes towards the later part of that. And that was all due to COVID. People were getting these stimulus checks. They were coming left and right. And people were buying anything, like literally anything. So I would go into these Foot Lockers, apply a coupon, buy 20 pairs of one single shoe, and go and immediately turn it back onto StockX, GOAT, or a bulk buyer and make $10, $15, but I would have the shoes sold by the time I got home. And I would do that across 10 different stores. So the volume started getting really big. It was a very profitable 8 months. But that was kind of where the sneaker career was starting to close out. It was a lot of manual labor. And then the stores started to close. So I couldn't go to these stores to go purchase the product.
Right.
And then with that, I had started to build a following. I was a respectable individual in the community, and I wanted to dabble with Discord. I knew that there was a lot of these groups where I was a consumer of these groups where I would pay to get the information, to get all that good stuff. And here I'm still 20, 21 years old. And I noticed a big gap in the sneaker bot world, like sneaker software to purchase multiple items. It was really expensive. Like some products were $4,000 or $5,000 for one single copy. But the cool thing was when you owned the product, you were able to rent out your license to other people. So you pay $4,000. I could find a Lauren every single weekend to rent it for $200 a weekend, and you would be able to start paying that product back. Once I realized there was a lot of demand for this, I saw there was only 3 companies doing this rental marketplace, and they were all big brands. So I was like, I think people would be interested in like maybe a more boutique option, not so corporate. And I was right. I started to get buy-in from so many different smaller groups. That's what I targeted first. And the company was called The Bot Spot. It was a market rental place. It was completely free to be in the group. You just would obviously pay for the service. And that company just blew up. I quickly went from 10 to 15 members because I partnered with one group right off the bat. And I was the only one. So I bought 10 bots. There was 20 people in the group. It would sell out right when I dropped. The 10 people would come and get them. And I was like, wow, like I'm making $400 or $500 a weekend. Like, I think there's something here. And I continued to grow it, partner with more groups. When we got to around 1,000 members in that group, I was like, okay, something's going on here. Like we have some upside. And I went out, raised some money, bought a bunch of inventory, and then I had hired 9 employees, and I had 30 people who also owned a good chunk of inventory who would rent their software when I would be sold out, and I would take percentages off of that.
Wow.
And this just blew up. I thought I made it. I'm selling these sneakers. I'm making $2-3 grand a month off the sneakers. This company, I'm making $5,000 to $9,000 a month on top of that. And then I'm also doing a like course type business where I'm teaching you how to use the software, and I'm doing $400 a month and 5 slots. And those 5 slots would sell out in 10 minutes when I would release them. So I'm 21, 22, making like 12, 13, 14 grand profit a month. I'm looking at my parents. I'm like, I'm never going to work again. Like I'm never going to work for anybody. My portfolio of software was valued at now like 120 grand. I'm like, I mean, I'm doing it. I'm like, I read about it online all the time. And I'm like, I'm a young person who's like, I'm going to be a millionaire. That was not the case. And COVID really started to set in. Now I'm like, I'm not this millionaire like success story here. I actually think I'm net negative on my 3 years of work due to all of the reinvestments that I made in these businesses that are now essentially worthless. So I had to swallow a big pill there at 22, 23 years old, and I'm now 24. And it took me a while, like a year of just, I don't know what I'm going to do. What's next for me? I got my first official big adult job. Yesterday was actually my 1-year anniversary at that job. So that was really exciting. And it was a job that's flexible, allowed me to do things on the side and still build, but I couldn't figure out what was next for me. Luckily, I found this podcast. I pushed myself and it's going amazing, but that's a quick summary of my journey there.
Dude, that is so wild. And I was thinking a couple of things as you were talking. One, we had a young woman named Suni Rao on recently, and she was a professional tennis player. And I asked her, I don't know if I was on the podcast or we were prepping for it, but I was like, so do you like still play tennis? And she's like, no, like I can't do it. She got burnt out from that. right? And so I was thinking about that as you were talking about the baseball thing. And then as you're talking about the rug being swept out from under you for COVID, we had a woman named Tracey, and she has a bunch of Airbnbs in Tokyo, and she had $1 million in reservations for the Olympics. And then the Olympics were like moved to the following year, and then nobody was allowed to be there. And so like total rug pull. So I was
Wow.
just thinking about like some of these other stories that I've heard, and really the theme there is resilience. And so I do think it's interesting because I've had multiple entrepreneurs on, and the entrepreneurs, like, they're entrepreneurs, but you went and like now you're actually working for somebody else. How did that transition go?
Yeah. So it was tough. I even though it was a failure, I never think that I was the reason it failed. I knew that there was things I couldn't control. I'm going to chalk it up to a learning experience. I love saying chalk it up to the game. But I did realize I think I do need to go get like a real job, but I wasn't going to settle for anything. I wasn't rushing to go find a job. I wasn't strapped for cash. I still live at home with my amazing parents. They're going to have to pry me out of this house because I love it here. But I mean, I do have a girlfriend. We are making 5 years in 2 weeks. So moving
Wow.
to the more serious part of the relationship where
Man, you guys were young. Holy crap,
yeah.
when you met.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah. So I realized that like, there is going to be like adult things that I need to start to accomplish probably sooner rather than later. Let me go get some good income. But for me, I needed a job with flexibility. I needed a job that wasn't micromanagement, that wasn't kind of on my back 24/7. And my mom has worked for an amazing tech company and one of the biggest tech companies in the world for 17 years. And she said, "Hey, here's my boss. I think you guys would really hit it off. Ask him some questions about the job and see what's going on." We did hit it off. He started to tell me a little bit about the job, and it was sales. And when he broke the job down to me, I got the entrepreneurial vibes that I wanted from it, where it's like, I have my book of business. I run that book of business the way that I want to run it. I manage my customers the way I want to manage them. At the end of the day, all I need to do is show results. So it was a little bit of a no-brainer for me when I jumped in. I'm a firm believer in go get that money early on in your career and leverage it to be able to give you the financial freedom you're probably looking to achieve, which is why you started entrepreneurship in the first place.
I agree with you. And I love sales as the W-2. I was in sales for 9 years. I sold training, and it was very flexible, and it does have to do with delivering results. And it was a little bit like, this is kind of a funny, I guess, comparison, but when I was in high school, sometimes my mom would come home in the middle of the day and I would just like be there. And she's like, "What's going on?" I'm like, "Well, we weren't really doing anything in school today, so I just came home." And she'd be like, "Okay." Do you know why? Because I had straight A's. Like, what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
It's not like I was skipping a test because I didn't study for it. No, I was like, I'm not gonna be here if there's nothing going on. And sales is kind of like that. Nobody really is jumping down your throat if you're, working hard and making sales and hitting your numbers and things like that. And you're so right about having the book of business, and those clients better than anybody else. And they basically, your boss or your company has to trust you to manage them the way they want to be managed and should be managed. And if you're compensated the right way, you're going to be incentivized in all the right ways. So yeah, I love that. And I think having a high paying W-2 in your 20s is not talked about enough. And if you can then save half of your W-2, or if you're in a relationship, save one of your W-2s, or even if you just save all of your bonuses or whatever and just live on your base, you can do a lot of foundation setting that other people aren't going to do. And so I'm really glad you made those points. And I think sales is the way to go. I mean, there's companies where the top salespeople are making more than the CEO. There's no question. And $1 million, I know people that have sold training that are making 700. It's
Yeah.
not unheard of.
No. And I love that you mentioned that, like what saving that W-2 and what we can do. Like it's important to have a good partner. And like my partner, she was willing to listen to me when I had to go on my financial rant. I'm very passionate about finances. I think you can make some really, really good decisions early in your 20s that will set you up for the long term. And my biggest takeaway from at least my generation is everybody's very short-sighted. It's like, what can you do for me now? What can my experience be now? And her and I sat down and went through everything, and she saw what I was trying to explain. And if we do certain things now, we're going to have a very enjoyable 30s, 40s, 50s. And she also is in tech sales as well. So we're both bringing in a good income, and we both still live at home. So the challenge that I set for us is 40, 40, 20. Can we invest 40% of every paycheck? Can we save 40% of every paycheck? And then can we live off of 20% of our paychecks and still enjoy ourselves? And what a shocker, we could. But it's funny because if we weren't doing that, we would be living a lifestyle of what 80% of our paychecks would be like. And we're living off of 20% of each of our paychecks. And yes, we're making good money, but it's not anything crazy. It's not like, oh my God, they're making 500 grand. Of course they can live off 20%. It's nowhere near that. But we're forcing ourselves to understand that we can still enjoy our day-to-day life and our weekends and do fun things. And we never miss out on anything with our friends. We never miss out on trips or experiences. But we're so far ahead of anybody our age, at least that I know of, from a savings perspective, from an investing perspective. Like we're maxing out our 401ks. We're both in our employee stock purchase programs at our companies. All of our savings go into high yield CDs, taking advantage of the rates that we have right now. Like we're doing so many foundational things early on that are going to set us up to, if I want to leave my W-2 at 35, I probably will be able to and comfortably go start a company and make 50% of what I was making, but enjoy my day-to-day, golf 3 times a week. And that wouldn't be possible if we weren't taking these big steps early on.
I think you can do what you're doing. I think you can set a good foundation. I think you can be disciplined in your 20s and not miss out on things like you're saying, and still set yourself up. Because a lot of people, they do play catch up, and they play this game in their mind where like, well, when I make more money, I'll save, or when I have kids, I'll save, or it never gets easier. It definitely never gets easier once you leave your parents' house. No offense.
Yeah,
but,
no, I know.
And also I'm in the Tampa Bay area, and something about people in Tampa, they don't like Orlando, they don't like Miami. And so I'm going to rag on Miami a little bit here. You are in the land of lifestyle inflation. I mean,
oh yeah,
the keeping up with the Joneses,
impossible.
There's nowhere that I see it more than Miami. I mean, we're talking like modest 1-story home, Land Rover, BMW in the front yard. It is crazy. So it's even harder. So kudos to keeping yourself in check down there.
Yeah, no. And I think that's what we realized too. It's like, we love our families. We don't plan on leaving. We want to be able to be around everybody, but let's be honest, like we are 2 24-year-olds making 6 figures, and we can't afford a house right now. Like we just can't afford one. And I'm not going to go buy a condo built in 1965 that I'm going to have a $1,200 a month HOA and an assessment every month. I can't afford to go live in these new buildings that are $800,000 for a 1-1 with 650 square feet. So I'm kind of falling in the middle of like having to go a little outside of the city, having to go find, but I'm still going to go buy a townhouse that's going to be 1,700 square feet, and it's going to cost me 550,000. Like, and
at least,
I mean, it's just, it's mind blowing. And I want to be able to put the right amount of money down so we have a not so crazy mortgage, and we're still young. So we'll probably live there for 8-9 years. And it's like, I mean, we got to work ass off like to go do these things. And it's crazy, but that's kind of the rat race we're in here in Miami. And it's very unfortunate because it's a place that I love. I grew up here my whole life, but it's pretty unaffordable for somebody in their mid-20s, like, to be 100% honest.
Do you think your entrepreneurial adventures and misadventures have contributed to how steady and forward-thinking you guys are?
1,000%. If I wouldn't have made these mistakes, because looking back, if I would have had the same rules I have now with my W-2 in my businesses when I was making a lot of money, I would be in a house right now. Like I would own a house. I was making plenty money back in the day where I could have had $50, $60, $70,000 saved in 2 years. and been able to purchase this $550,000 townhouse 4 years ago, 3 years ago, when it was $275,000. But that's what's made the person I am now. Like, that's given me the perspective of like, be careful. Things could disappear really quickly. If you're not planning for a rainy day, you're going to get caught with your pants down. And that's what happened to me. So I think it's 100% like built me into the person I am now, and also given me, because you can understand things and you can get it. But when you're working with somebody else, like, so when you're in a relationship, you have to be able to articulate the reasons why you're doing certain things. And it's very easy for me to bring up stories and her be like, oh yeah, I don't want that. Okay, great. So it has completely shaped me into the person I am now, and made me make this decisions at a young age that probably would not have been made, because I'd love to be with all my friends and people from high school, popping bottles and partying in the clubs and stuff. But it doesn't fit into my financial plan right now.
I'm glad that you're giving your partner so much credit. And I don't think the drag along significant others, for lack of a better word, I'll have to think about that more. I'll have to ask my husband if he would like that or not. But, the people that get very into personal finance, normally there's one person in the relationship that's more into it than the other. And then someone is sort of dragged into that passion, if you will. And I don't think they get enough credit. So I'm glad you're bringing that up as well.
Yeah, for sure. I completely agree.
So is there anything else you want to add before we wrap up?
No, I mean, I would just challenge people, like, at a young age, if like the younger listeners listening, challenge yourself to see how cheap you could really live, because I think it's a really eye-opening experience. You will be surprised that you don't need to spend 80% of your monthly income to enjoy yourself. And you will start to create habits, because I think it's a good point that you made earlier that I didn't bring back up, is people say, oh, I'll save when I make more money. I'll do this when I make more money. That's not true. It's just not. Like, the data shows it. If you couldn't save when you were making 50 grand, you're not going to save when you're making 75. But for us, let's say, as a easy number, we're both making $150,000, but we're saving 40 and investing 40. So we're living off of 20% of that. When that 150 goes to 300 each, we will still live off of the 20% and do the rest with the other stuff. But now our lifestyle can get a little better, but not to the point where we're like, all right, now we're just living like a baller life here in Miami. We've got 2 Range Rovers. No, you don't need that. So instilling those habits early on make it so much easier, because I think it's the opposite. When there's more money coming in, there's more of the little devil sitting on your shoulder, like, hey, go spend more. Like, you're rich now, like, go enjoy yourself. But if you instill these habits early on, you will be able to make these decisions later on in your life when you're making more money, because I think it's a very common misconception. It does not get easier to save when you make more. It becomes easier to spend. There's so many more temptations. There's so many things that are more available to you now with that income. But if you put your foot forward and make these conscious decisions early on, you will set yourself up for so much success.
And I will add, if you didn't, right, if there's people that are sitting here in their 30s and they maybe are just finding out about how to manage their money and they're just curious about it, you can move backwards and become frugal now. It is harder. It's not as comfortable. But I mean, when I was 27, I did have a rental property, but I mean, I bought a house in a golf course community and a BMW, and I was making the 6 figures, and I was on the path to a very normal life of that society wants for me. And I had to take a step back, and I downgraded my car. I downgraded my house. I went back to house hacking, and I've done that a few times since. And it's uncomfortable, but at the same point, it feels a lot better, because for me, I was starting to really align with my values. And I think a lot of people, if you're just getting swept up in the river that society brings you down, you can get really uncomfortable and you don't really know why you're feeling uncomfortable in your gut. So I'll say too, like, if anybody listening in their 20s, stay frugal longer. I say, pretend like you're in college, but just for longer, whether it's live with your parents, have roommates, be frugal, eat ramen. I don't do that. I never did that, but like, as an example, or, go back to that lifestyle if you absolutely positively can, because life it's short, but it's also in some ways long if life expectancy is like 80. So even the 30 and 40-year-olds, they got a long way to go.
Yeah. Yeah. It's never too late to start. Like just do it. Like, I guess that's the great thing to leave it on. Don't wait till
Oh,
tomorrow.
you
Just
bringing it
do
back
it.
to you bringing it back to Nike?
Yeah. Just do it. we're from the start all the way to the end. We're wrapping Nike in. Just do it. But I think it's just, it's so true. Like, there's always going to be an excuse. Always. I guarantee it. If there isn't one, you'll probably make it up. That's just the way it works. Just start. Like, even if it's $1, $2, $5, it doesn't matter. It's more about the habit creation than it is so the dollar amount, because the dollar amount will forever increase as long as you stay on an upward trajectory, which I hope everybody is. It's more about the habit creation than anything. That will make things so much easier. So I think that's the great thing to just highlight there. Anybody can start at any time. I know I'm highlighting 20-year-olds because that's me right now, but anybody can start. The dollar amount doesn't matter. It's about creating the habit that is the most important part of this.
I love that. Can you tell people how to get in touch with you?
Yeah, for sure. So you can follow me. I'm really active on Twitter. Unfortunately, I have like the most common name ever, so it's hard to find a variation of my name. It's underscore Andres, ANDRES underscore SANCH underscore. Only available Andres Sanchez almost option. And then on Instagram, I am, of course, the other only available Andres Sanchez, and that's at Andres Sanchez official. And then Sanchez is SANCHEZ official. Much more active on Twitter, really working on building my brand there. My podcast is all built through Twitter at the moment. So that would probably be the best place to reach me. And I'm always happy to collaborate and talk and mentor younger individuals. That's something I really enjoy. So please, DMs are wide open. Come through and ask me anything.
I'll put those in the show description as well. You guys can follow me on Twitter at Adulting is Easy, Instagram at Adulting is Easy Real. Adulting is Easy was taken over there. YouTube at Adulting is Easy. If you like this episode, there's a bonus episode between Adulting is Easy 110 and 111 that's specifically about sales that you might like. And then there's also episode 140 where we talked with Eric about being an entrepreneur and building online businesses. And I think you guys might like that one as well. Well, thanks for listening, everybody. Hopefully, Andres and I made adulting a little easier for you.